I stood in the funeral director's office 3 days after burying my wife Margaret, still numb from losing her after 42 years of marriage. Mr. Harrison, the funeral director, held a sealed envelope with trembling hands. Before he could pass it to me, my son Derek burst through the door, his face flushed and eyes wild. He ignored my grief entirely and barked, "Just give me the house. You don't need it anymore." The coldness in his voice sent ice through my veins. Mr. Harrison's expression tightened as he said quietly, "Sir, this letter was meant only for you." My hands shook as I reached for the envelope, my heart pounding. What could Margaret's final words possibly contain? My fingers fumbled with the envelope seal, while Derek paced behind me like a caged animal. The paper inside was cream-colored stationery, the kind Margaret always used for important letters. Her handwriting, elegant and careful even in what must have been her final days, made my eyes blur with tears before I could read a single word. "My dearest Creighton," it began, and I could hear her voice as clearly as if she stood beside me. "If you are reading this, then I am gone, and I am so sorry I could not tell you this in person. What I must share will break your heart, but you deserve to know the truth." I glanced up at Derek, who had stopped pacing and was staring at the letter with an expression I couldn't quite read. Anxiety? Fear? I looked back down and continued. "For the past 3 years, our son has been stealing from you. I discovered it by accident 6 months ago when I noticed discrepancies in our bank statements. At first, I thought it was my mistake, but then I found a canceled check made out to cash for $8,000. Your signature was on it, but you had been in Chicago that week for your high school reunion. I remembered because I didn't go with you due to my doctor's appointment." My chest tightened. I remembered that trip. It was 2 years ago, maybe closer to 3. I had gone alone, spent 4 days reconnecting with old friends I hadn't seen in decades. Margaret's letter continued with devastating precision. I started looking more carefully. I found dozens of checks, Creighton. Forged signatures. All of them. Small amounts at first. 200 here, 500 there. Then they grew larger. 3,000. 7,000. 12,000. I have documented everything. The dates are below, along with check numbers and amounts. My hands were shaking so hard now that the paper rustled audibly. Below her written words was a meticulously organized list. Dates going back 3 years. Check after check after check. The amounts were staggering. I did quick mental math and felt sick. Over $60,000. "I hired a private investigator," Margaret wrote. "His name is Jackson Cole, and his number is at the bottom of this letter. He confirmed what I suspected. Derek has been forging your signature. He has also been pressuring me for months to convince you to sign over the house to him. He said you were getting too old to manage it, that it would be easier if everything was in his name. I refused every time, and he became angry with me. Creighton, I was going to tell you all of this the day I had my heart attack. I had all the evidence ready. I am so sorry I waited so long. I wanted to be sure before I accused our son of something so terrible." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of Mr. Harrison's desk to steady myself. Our son, the boy I had raised alone after his mother walked out when he was 7 years old. The child I had worked double shifts to put through college. The young man whose wedding I had paid for, whose first car I had bought, whose life I had poured everything into. "Derek," I said, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar. "Is this true?" He took a step toward me, and for a moment, I thought he might confess, might apologize, might show some shred of remorse. Instead, his eyes darted to the letter, and he lunged forward, trying to grab it from my hands. "What did she say about me? Give me that!" "Mr." Harrison moved with surprising speed for a man in his 70s, stepping between us. "Sir, I must ask you to leave. This is a private matter." Derek's face contorted with rage. "Private? Has my father? That house is mine. I've earned it. Earned it." The words came out of me like gravel. "By stealing from me. You don't understand," Derek spat. "You're getting old. You don't even notice what's happening anymore. Someone has to take care of these things. Get out," I said quietly. "What? Get out of this office. Get out of my sight." For the first time in my life, I looked at my son and felt nothing but cold, deep disappointment. The grief over Margaret was still crushing me, making it hard to breathe. But now it was mixed with betrayal so profound I couldn't process it. Derek's expression shifted rapidly. Confusion, anger, then something harder, more calculating. You'll regret this, old man. You have no idea what you're doing." He turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the framed certificates on Mr. Harrison's wall rattled. In the silence that followed, I sank into the chair across from the funeral director's desk. My wife was dead. My son was a thief and a liar. I was 67 years old, and my entire world had collapsed in the span of a week. Mr. Harrison poured me a glass of water from the pitcher on his credenza. "I am very sorry, Mr. Creighton. Your wife came to see me 4 days before she passed. She asked me to hold that letter and give it to you only after the funeral, only when you were alone. She said you would need time to grieve first. She was protecting me," I whispered. Even knowing she was dying, she was still protecting me. I looked down at the letter again, at Margaret's careful handwriting, at the list of my son's crimes against me. At the bottom, just as she had promised, was a phone number for Jackson Cole, private investigator. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my jacket pocket, right over my heart, where it seemed to burn against my chest. Margaret had loved me enough to spend her final months investigating our son, documenting his betrayal, preparing me for this moment. And Derek? Derek had shown me exactly who he was. A man who couldn't even wait until his stepmother was in the ground before demanding his father's house. A man who had been systematically robbing me for 3 years. I stood up slowly, every one of my 67 years weighing on me. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison, for everything. For taking care of Margaret, and for giving me this letter." He shook my hand solemnly. "She was a remarkable woman. I could tell from the moment I met her. She loved you very much." "Yes," I said. "She did." I walked out of the funeral home into the bright afternoon sun. My car was parked in the lot, the same sedan Margaret and I had bought together 5 years ago. She had picked the color. A deep blue, she said, reminded her of the ocean. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, not starting the engine, just staring at nothing. Somewhere in my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text message. I pulled it out and saw Derek's name. "We need to talk. Come to the house. My house. The house Margaret and I had shared. The house where we had built a life together. Where she had raised Derek as her own after his biological mother abandoned him. Where every room held memories of her laughter, her cooking, her presence. The house my son thought he could simply take from me." I started the engine and drove home. Margaret's letter pressing against my heart like a shield. 2 days after receiving Margaret's letter, I sat in the office of Patricia Brennan, branch manager at First National Bank. The building was one of those modern glass and steel structures that had replaced the old brick bank I remembered from my youth. Everything felt cold and impersonal, which somehow suited the moment. Patricia was a woman in her early 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She had known Margaret and me for 15 years, ever since we had opened our accounts here after moving to town. When I called and told her I needed to review all my accounts urgently, she had cleared her afternoon schedule. "I need to see everything," I told her, sliding Margaret's letter across her desk. Every transaction, every check, every withdrawal for the past 5 years. She read the letter carefully, her expression growing graver with each line. When she finished, she looked up at me with something close to anger in her eyes, though I knew it wasn't directed at me. "Mr. Creighton, I am so sorry. Let me pull up your accounts." Her fingers moved rapidly across her keyboard, and I watched her face as she scanned the information appearing on her screen. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for her phone and made a quick call. "Jerry, I need you to bring me complete transaction histories for the Creighton accounts. All of them. 5 years back. Yes, everything. Paper copies, please." We waited in uncomfortable silence. I could hear the wall clock ticking, each second stretching out impossibly long. Finally, a young man in a bank uniform arrived with a stack of folders and printouts that he placed on Patricia's desk. "Thank you, Jerry. Close the door on your way out." Patricia opened the first folder and began going through it methodically. I watched her face change as she worked, saw her jaw tighten, saw her shake her head slightly. After what felt like an eternity, she turned her computer monitor so I could see it. "Mr. Creighton, what your wife discovered was only the beginning." The screen showed a spreadsheet with hundreds of entries, color-coded in a way I didn't understand. Patricia pointed to clusters of red entries. "These are all forged checks, or unauthorized transactions. Your wife was right about the $60,000, but that was only what she had time to document. The actual amount is much worse." "How much worse?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Nearly $200,000 over 5 years. The room seemed to spin. $200,000. That was most of my retirement savings. Most of everything Margaret and I had worked for over 4 decades. But there's more. Patricia continued, her voice gentle but firm. Do you have any credit cards with us? 2. I said. 1 Visa, 1 MasterCard. We barely use them. Margaret liked to pay cash for most things. Patricia pulled up another screen. Mr. Creighton. Both cards have been actively used. The Visa is currently maxed out at $30,000. The MasterCard is at $25,000. That's impossible. I haven't used those cards in months. She turned the monitor again, showing me pages of transactions. Restaurants I had never been to. A marina called Sunset Harbor. Multiple charges to something called Lucky Stars Gaming, which Patricia explained was an online gambling website. Cash advances, sometimes 3 or 4 in a single week. I never made any of these charges, I said. I've never gambled online in my life. I don't even know how. I believe you, Patricia said. The pattern is consistent with fraud. Someone had access to your cards, or more likely, had access to your account information and ordered replacement cards sent to a different address. My mind was reeling. Derek. It had to be Derek. He had a key to our house. He had come by dozens of times over the years when Margaret and I were out. He could have easily found my wallet, written down the numbers, or even ordered new cards in my name. There's one more thing, Patricia said, and her tone told me this was going to be the worst of it. Do you have any mortgages on your property? No. Margaret and I paid off the house 12 years ago. We had a little party when we made the final payment. Patricia's expression was grim. Mr. Creighton, according to our records, your property has a second mortgage taken out 18 months ago for $150,000. The words didn't make sense. That's not possible. She handed me a stack of papers. These are copies of the loan documents. That's your signature on the application. I looked at the papers. The signature did look like mine. The handwriting was close enough that I could see how a bank employee might not question it, but I had never signed these documents. I had never even seen them before. Who else is on the loan? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Derek Creighton, listed as co-borrower. The funds were dispersed to an account in his name. I set the papers down carefully, afraid that if I held them any longer, I might tear them to pieces. $150,000. Yes, sir. So Derek has stolen nearly $200,000 in cash and charges, plus borrowed $150,000 using my house as collateral. That appears to be correct. $350,000. The number was so large I couldn't comprehend it. My hands were shaking again, the same way they had in the funeral director's office. Mr. Creighton, I strongly recommend you file a police report. This is fraud on a massive scale. It's also elder abuse, which carries serious criminal penalties in this state. My son, I said quietly. I raised him by myself after his mother left. Did you know that? Patricia nodded. I remember you mentioning it once. His mother walked out the door one Tuesday morning when Derek was 7. She said she couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be a mother. Couldn't be a wife. She just left. I was 32 years old, working as an electrician. Suddenly a single father. I gave Derek everything. I worked double shifts, sometimes triple shifts, to make sure he had what he needed. I paid for his college, bought him his first car, paid for his wedding to Natalie. I paused, a thought occurring to me. Natalie filed for divorce last year. Derek told me it was because she had changed, become difficult. But now I wonder if she found out what he was doing. That's very possible, Patricia said. I looked at the stacks of paper on her desk. The evidence of my son's systematic betrayal. Margaret had known. She had spent the last months of her life investigating, documenting, preparing to tell me, and I had been completely blind to all of it. What are my options? I asked. Patricia leaned forward, her expression sympathetic but professional. You can file criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. You can also pursue a civil case to try to recover the money. The fraudulent mortgage can likely be voided since you never actually signed for it. But that will require legal action. You will need a lawyer, probably both a criminal attorney and someone who specializes in elder law. And if I do nothing, then Derek gets away with it. The credit card debt will ruin your credit. The mortgage payments will eventually default if they're not being paid, and you could lose your house. The stolen money is just gone. I thought about Margaret, about the months she had spent quietly gathering evidence while her heart was failing. She had known what I needed to do. She had prepared the path for me. I need copies of everything, I said. Every transaction, every document, every piece of evidence. Patricia nodded. I'll have Jerry prepare a complete package for you. It will take about an hour. I'll wait. She stood and squeezed my shoulder gently before leaving to arrange the copies. I sat alone in her office, surrounded by the documentation of my son's crimes against me. My phone buzzed. Another text from Derek. Dad, we really need to talk. This is important. I didn't respond. I was done talking to Derek until I understood the full scope of what he had done. An hour later, I walked out of First National Bank, carrying 2 large folders stuffed with papers. My retirement savings were nearly gone. My credit cards were maxed out. My house had a fraudulent mortgage against it. And my son, the boy I had raised alone, had done all of this while looking me in the eye and calling me Dad. I sat in my car in the parking lot and pulled out Margaret's letter again, reading her words one more time. At the bottom, she had written something I hadn't noticed before, a postscript in smaller handwriting. Creighton, I know this will hurt you terribly, but remember that you are strong. You survived Sandra leaving. You raised Derek alone. You built a good life. You found love again with me. You can survive this too. Hold Derek accountable. It's the last loving thing you can do for him, even if he never understands it. I love you always. Your, Margaret. I pressed the letter to my chest and let myself cry. There in the parking lot of First National Bank, surrounded by strangers who had no idea that my entire world had crumbled. Then I dried my eyes, started the car, and drove home. I had phone calls to make. I had a private investigator to contact. I had decisions to make about my son's future and my own. Margaret had given me the truth as her final gift. Now, I had to decide what to do with it. 3 days after my visit to the bank, I was in my kitchen making coffee when I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was just after 9 in the morning on a Wednesday. I looked out the window and saw Derek's truck, along with a sleek black sedan I didn't recognize. My son climbed out of his truck wearing a suit, which was unusual. Derek worked in construction management and rarely wore anything more formal than khakis and a polo shirt. Behind him, a man in an expensive charcoal suit emerged from the sedan, carrying a leather briefcase. I opened the front door before they could knock. Derek's expression was a mixture of concern and something else I couldn't quite identify. Calculation. Maybe. Dad, this is Gordon Hastings, as an attorney. We need to talk to you about some concerns we have. What concerns? I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was pounding. Gordon Hastings extended his hand with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Creighton, may we come in? This is a delicate matter, best discussed privately. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let them enter. We moved to the living room, where Margaret's presence still filled every corner. Her reading glasses sat on the side table next to her favorite chair. Her knitting basket was beside the couch. A half-finished crossword puzzle lay on the coffee table. Gordon settled into the armchair, placing his briefcase on his lap with theatrical precision. Derek sat on the couch, perched on the edge like he was ready to spring up at any moment. Mr. Creighton, Gordon began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. Your son has asked me here today because he's worried about you. In the wake of your wife's passing, he's noticed some concerning changes in your behavior and decision-making. What changes? I asked. Derek leaned forward. Dad, you've been acting strange. Paranoid. You accused me of stealing from you, which is crazy. You've been confused about things. Gordon thinks, and I agree, that you might be experiencing some cognitive decline. It's normal at your age, especially after such a traumatic loss. I stared at my son. This man I no longer recognized. Cognitive decline. It's nothing to be ashamed of, Gordon said, pulling papers from his briefcase. We've had you evaluated by Dr. Samuel Pritchard, a highly respected psychiatrist. Based on his assessment, he believes you're suffering from severe grief-induced dementia, complicated by your age. The recommendation is that you should no longer be managing your own affairs. I've never met Dr. Samuel Pritchard, I said quietly. Gordon waved his hand dismissively. The evaluation was conducted based on reported behaviors and observations. It's a preliminary assessment, of course, but Dr. Pritchard feels confident in his conclusions. So a doctor I've never met has decided I'm incompetent based on things my son told him. Dad, don't be difficult, Derek said, and I heard an edge creep into his voice. We're trying to help you. Gordon has drawn up power of attorney documents. You just need to sign them, and I can handle everything for you. The house, the finances, all of it. You won't have to worry about anything. Gordon spread papers across the coffee table, covering Margaret's crossword puzzle. These documents are quite standard. They give Derek legal authority to make financial and medical decisions on your behalf. It's really for your own protection. I looked at the papers without touching them. The words, "Durable Power of Attorney," were printed across the top in bold letters. Below that, dense paragraphs of legal language that essentially signed away my autonomy to my son, the son who had stolen $350,000 from me. "No," I said. Derek's expression shifted slightly, a crack in his concerned facade. "What? I'm not signing anything. I'm not incompetent. I'm not confused. And am not giving you power of attorney." Gordon's smile tightened. "Mr. Creighton, I understand this is difficult, but your son has your best interests at heart. Without these protections in place, you're vulnerable. You could make poor decisions that put your financial security at risk. The only poor decisions I've made were trusting my son and not seeing what he was doing." Derek stood abruptly, his face flushing red. "You're proving our point right now. You're paranoid and delusional. You think I've been stealing from you, which is insane. I've done nothing but try to help you, and this is how you treat me. I have bank records," I said. "I have forged checks. I have documentation of a mortgage I never signed. I have credit card charges I never made. All explainable." Gordon interjected smoothly. "Memory lapses. Confusion. These are classic signs of cognitive decline, Mr. Creighton. You may not remember signing documents or making purchases." Derek walked to the window, then turned back to me, his expression hard. "Dad, I've already talked to Uncle Raymond and Thomas. I told them about your condition. They're concerned too. Raymond thinks you should see a doctor. Maybe consider assisted living." The mention of my brother hit me hard. Raymond and I had been close once, though we had drifted apart over the years as life got busy. He lived 3 hours away in Ohio. We talked on the phone every few weeks, saw each other at holidays. "You told Raymond incompetent." I told him the truth, that you've been acting strange since Margaret died, that you're making accusations that don't make sense. Has worried about you. So is Thomas. Thomas was Raymond's son, my nephew. A good kid, now in his 30s with a family of his own. The thought of them believing I was losing my mind made my stomach turn. Derek came closer, looming over where I sat. "Here's what's going to happen, Dad. You're going to sign those papers. You're going to give me power of attorney, or I'm going to have you evaluated by a real doctor, in person, and I'm going to have you declared incompetent. Then you'll spend whatever time you have left in a nursing home, and I'll still get everything. The house, the accounts, all of it." "That's quite enough," Gordon said, though his tone suggested he didn't actually disapprove. "Mr. Creighton, what my client is trying to convey is that you have two options. You can sign these documents voluntarily, maintaining your dignity and some degree of autonomy. Or we can pursue a more formal competency hearing, which would be unpleasant for everyone involved." "And if I go to the police about the fraud?" I asked. Derek laughed, a harsh sound. "Go ahead. Tell them your story. I have a psychiatric evaluation saying you're delusional. I have evidence that you're confused about your finances. Who do you think they'll believe? A confused old man grieving his wife, or a concerned son trying to protect his father?" Gordon added. "At your age, with your recent loss, I'm afraid the authorities would likely view any accusations as symptoms of your declining mental state. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality." Derek picked up the papers and held them out to me. "You have 48 hours to decide, Dad. Sign willingly, or we do this the hard way. Either way, I'm taking over. Margaret would have wanted me to take care of you." The mention of Margaret's name from his mouth made rage surge through me, white-hot and purifying, but I kept my voice steady. "Get out of my house." 48 hours, Derek repeated. He dropped the papers on the coffee table and headed for the door. Gordon followed, pausing at the threshold. "Mr. Creighton, please think carefully about your options. Your son really does want what's best for you." Then they were gone, leaving me alone in the house that suddenly felt like a trap. I sat in the silence for a long time. Margaret's crossword puzzle buried under legal documents that would give my son complete control over my life. Derek had thought of everything. He had created a narrative where I was the confused, grieving old man, and he was the dutiful son trying to help. He had poisoned my family against me. He had threatened me with a nursing home. And he had done it all while stealing every dollar he could get his hands on. My phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw Raymond's name. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to face my brother's concern, knowing it was based on Derek's lies. The voicemail notification popped up a moment later. I played it. Creighton. It's Raymond. Derek called me yesterday. Has worried about you, brother. Says you've been acting confused, making strange accusations. I know losing Margaret must be hard, but maybe you should see someone. Get some help. Call me back, okay? Love you. My brother, who I had grown up with, who knew me better than almost anyone, believed Derek over me without question. I walked to the bedroom, to the nightstand, where Margaret had kept her journals and personal papers. I opened the drawer and saw her familiar handwriting on a stack of notebooks. Below them was the envelope she had left at the funeral home, the one I had been carrying in my pocket since that day. I pulled out everything, spreading it across the bed. Margaret's investigation notes, the check numbers and dates, the phone number for Jackson Cole, the private investigator. I had 48 hours before Derek made his next move. I couldn't do this alone, and I couldn't rely on family who had already been turned against me. But Margaret had left me a path forward. She had known Derek would fight back. She had prepared for it. I picked up my phone and dialed the number at the bottom of her letter. A man answered on the second ring. Jackson Cole. Mr. Cole, my name is Creighton. My wife Margaret hired you a few months ago. There was a brief pause. Then his voice softened. Mr. Creighton, I was very sorry to hear about Mrs. Creighton's passing. She was a remarkable woman. She left me a letter. It explained what she found, what you helped her find. About my son. I see. And now Derek has made his move. How did you know? Because your wife predicted he would. She was very thorough, Mr. Creighton, very careful, and she prepared for multiple scenarios. I think we should meet. Are you available this afternoon? Yes, I said. I'm available. Good. I'll text you an address. Come alone, and bring any documentation you've gathered since receiving your wife's letter. He hung up, and within seconds, my phone buzzed with an address across town. I gathered the bank records from Patricia Brennan, Margaret's letter, and her notes. I put them all in a folder and headed for my car. Derek thought he had cornered me. He thought I was a confused old man with no options and no support. He had forgotten that Margaret had loved me. And love, even from beyond the grave, was more powerful than he could imagine. Jackson Cole's office was in a modest brick building near downtown, sandwiched between a coffee shop and a print store. The sign on the door read Cole Investigations in simple black letters. I climbed the stairs to the second floor and found the door unlocked. Inside was a small waiting area with a desk, filing cabinets, and a couple of worn but comfortable-looking chairs. A door to an inner office stood open. A man appeared in the doorway, tall and lean, probably in his early 60s, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Mr. Creighton, come in, please. His office was neat and organized, with a large desk, 2 computer monitors, and walls covered with certificates and licenses. He gestured to a chair across from his desk, and I sat down, placing my folder on my lap. First, Jackson said, settling into his own chair, let me say again how sorry I am about Margaret. I only worked with her for a few months, but she impressed me greatly. She was smart, thorough, and absolutely determined to protect you. Thank you, I said. I'm still trying to process everything, the grief, and now learning what Derek has done. Tell me what's happened since you received her letter. I explained everything. The meeting at the bank with Patricia Brennan. The discovery that the theft was far worse than Margaret had documented. The credit card fraud. The forged mortgage. Derek's visit this morning with the attorney and the power of attorney papers. The threats. The fake psychiatric evaluation. The way Derek had turned my brother and nephew against me. Jackson listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Derek is following a classic playbook for this type of financial abuse. Isolate the victim, undermine their credibility, create a narrative of incompetence. It's effective because most people, including law enforcement and judges, don't want to believe a son would do this to his father. So, what can I do? Hess given me 48 hours to sign over power of attorney. Or he says hell have me declared incompetent. Jackson leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at his lips. Mr. Creighton, your wife anticipated exactly this scenario. She spent the last 6 months of her life building a case against Derek that he can't fight. Let me show you something. He turned to his computer and pulled up a folder labeled Creighton M. Inside were dozens of subfolders. Your wife came to me 7 months ago. She had noticed irregularities in your finances and wanted to know if her suspicions were correct. I confirmed they were. But Margaret didn't just want documentation of past crimes. She wanted to prevent future ones. Jackson clicked on a folder labeled Video Evidence. The screen filled with a grid of video thumbnails. Margaret had me install hidden cameras in 3 rooms of your house: the study, the living room, and the hallway. She told you she was having a home security system installed, which wasn't entirely untrue. I remembered. About 6 months ago, Margaret had mentioned wanting better security. A company had come out and installed cameras. I hadn't thought much about it at the time. Jackson played one of the videos. It showed the study in my house, the angle from somewhere up high, probably where one of the smoke detectors was mounted. The timestamp read 4 months ago. In the video, Derek entered the room, looked around to make sure he was alone, then went to my desk. He opened the drawers, pulled out my checkbook, and spent several minutes carefully forging my signature on a check. He held it up to examine his work, smiled, then pocketed it, and left. We have 17 videos of Derek going through your papers, forging checks, photographing financial documents, Jackson said. We also have audio. He played another file. Derek's voice filled the office, talking on his phone. Yeah, I got another 8,000 today. The old man doesn't even notice. I've been doing this for 3 years, and he's completely clueless. What? No. Margaret suspects something, but it'll handle her. She's not going to do anything. Look, once she's gone, it'll be even easier. Hell be a mess. I'll have him declared incompetent within 6 months, tops. Then everything is mine. The cold calculation in my son's voice made me feel sick. When was this recorded? I asked. 5 months ago, 2 weeks before Margaret's heart attack. Jackson closed that file and opened another folder. But that's not all. Margaret was very thorough. She had me conduct surveillance on Derek. We documented his lifestyle, his spending, his movements. We found some interesting things. He showed me photographs of Derek at expensive restaurants, at a marina with a boat I had never seen, at a casino. That boat cost about $70,000. He bought it 8 months ago. Cash. My cash, I said bitterly. Exactly. We also discovered Derek has a gambling problem. Hes in debt to some people who aren't the forgiving type. That's probably why he escalated the theft. Hes, desperate. Jackson turned to face me fully. Mr. Creighton, your wife built an airtight case. But she did something else too. Something Derek doesn't know about. He pulled out a manila envelope from his desk drawer and handed it to me. Inside were bank papers, account statements, and a debit card with my name on it. 3 months before she died, Margaret opened a new account at a different bank. She transferred $50,000 into it. She told the bank that only you were authorized to access it, and she left instructions that you should be informed of its existence only after her death, only by me. This is your safety net, $50,000. Money Derek couldn't touch, couldn't steal, couldn't claim. Margaret had protected me one more time. There's more, Jackson said. He handed me another envelope, this one thicker. Inside are copies of everything. All the video evidence, audio recordings, surveillance photos, financial documents proving the fraud. Your wife gave me explicit instructions. If Derek tried to have you declared incompetent or attempted to take power of attorney, I was to give you this and put you in touch with an attorney she had already consulted. She consulted an attorney 3 months ago. A woman named Sarah Blackwell. She specializes in elder abuse and financial fraud. Sarah has been briefed on your case and is prepared to represent you, both criminally and civilly. She's expecting your call. Jackson handed me a business card. Sarah Blackwell, attorney at law, elder law, and financial abuse. I held the card, the envelope of money, and the folder of evidence. Margaret had done all of this while her heart was failing, while she was preparing to leave me. She had used her final months to protect me from our son. There's one more thing, Jackson said quietly. Margaret left you a letter, a second letter. She gave it to me to hold until you came here. He handed me an envelope, and I recognized Margaret's handwriting immediately. My dearest Creighton was written across the front, and below it, open, if Derek threatens you. My hands shook as I opened it. My love, Margaret had written. If Jackson is giving you this letter, then Derek has shown you exactly who he is. I am so sorry you had to learn this truth. I know how much you love our son. But love sometimes means holding people accountable for their actions. I have spent 6 months building a case against Derek because I knew he wouldn't stop. I knew that if you confronted him, he would fight back. Men like Derek, men who see their parents as nothing more than a resource to exploit, don't simply apologize and change. They escalate. You have everything you need now. Evidence, money, legal support. Derek underestimated me. He forgot that I worked as a paralegal for 20 years before I retired. He forgot that I know how to build a case, how to document abuse, how to protect the people I love. Fight back, Creighton. Fight for both of us. Derek doesn't get to steal your life, your dignity, or your security. He doesn't get to win. I wish I could be there to hold your hand through this. I wish I could tell you in person how much I love you, how proud I am of you, how grateful I am for every year we had together. But even though I'm gone, my love is still protecting you. Use it. Use everything I've left you. And when this is over, when Derek faces the consequences he has earned, live fully. Live for both of us. Find joy again. Find peace. You are stronger than you know. You survived Sandra leaving. You raised Derek alone, even though it was hard. You found love again with me. You can survive this too. All my love, always and forever. Your Margaret. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Jackson handed me a box of tissues without comment. Your wife loved you very much, he said finally. Yes, I managed to say. She did. So, what do you want to do? We have 45 hours before Derek's deadline. I wiped my eyes and looked at the evidence spread across Jackson's desk. The videos, the photos, the audio recordings, the financial documents. Everything Derek had done, all documented, all undeniable. I thought about Derek's threats, his cold calculation, his willingness to destroy me to get what he wanted. I thought about Margaret spending her final months protecting me. I want to fight back, I said. I want Derek to face consequences for what he's done. All of it. Jackson nodded. Then let's call Sarah Blackwell and get started. Your son is about to learn that he picked the wrong man to victimize. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number on Sarah's business card. When she answered, I said, Miss Blackwell, my name is Creighton. My wife Margaret consulted with you 3 months ago about my son. I need your help. I've been waiting for your call, Sarah said. Let's talk about how we're going to take Derek down. For the first time in days, I felt something other than grief and despair. I felt the beginning of hope, and underneath it, a cold, determined anger. Margaret had given me the tools I needed. Now it was time to use them. Sarah Blackwell's office was in a renovated Victorian house downtown, painted a cheerful yellow with white trim. It was the kind of place that felt warm and welcoming, which I suspected was intentional. People coming to see Sarah were probably dealing with some of the worst situations of their lives. They needed warmth. I arrived at 8 the next morning with Jackson Cole. Sarah met us in a conference room on the 2nd floor, a space with tall windows overlooking the street, and a large mahogany table that could easily seat 12 people. Sarah was in her mid-50s, with shoulder-length auburn hair touched with gray and sharp green eyes behind stylish glasses. She wore a navy suit and had the bearing of someone who didn't back down from fights. When she shook my hand, her grip was firm and confident. Mr. Creighton, I'm very sorry for your loss. Margaret was an extraordinary woman. She came to see me 3 times, and each time I was more impressed by her thoroughness and her determination to protect you. Thank you, I said. I'm still processing everything she did. She loved you very much. That's obvious from the work she put in. Sarah gestured to the table. Jackson has already sent me most of the evidence, but I'd like to go through everything together. We need to understand the full scope of what Derek has done and plan our response strategically. For the next hour, we spread evidence across the conference table. Bank statements showing $350,000 in theft and fraud. Videos of Derek forging checks. Audio recordings of him bragging about his crimes. Surveillance photos showing his extravagant spending. The fraudulent mortgage documents. The fake psychiatric evaluation. Sarah took notes throughout, occasionally asking questions, always precise and focused. When we finished, she sat back and reviewed her legal pad. This is one of the most well-documented cases of elder financial abuse I've ever seen, she said. Margaret gave you a gift, Mr. Creighton. Most victims of this type of crime can't prove what happened to them. You can prove everything. What are our options? I asked. Multiple approaches, both criminal and civil. On the criminal side, Derek has committed fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse. Each of these carries serious penalties. In this state, elder financial abuse is a felony with enhanced sentencing. Given the amount of money involved and the systematic nature of the abuse, Derek could face significant prison time. How much time? With a conviction on all charges? Potentially 8 to 12 years. The number hung in the air. My son, in prison for a decade. Part of me recoiled from the thought. But another part, the part that had listened to Derek coldly plan to have me declared incompetent, felt only grim satisfaction. On the civil side, Sarah continued, you can sue to recover the money. The fraudulent mortgage can be voided, since you never actually signed it. The bank may fight that initially, but with the evidence we have, they'll settle. No bank wants to be on record approving a clearly forged document. What about Derek's threats? I asked. The power of attorney, the incompetency hearing. Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. That's where this gets interesting. Jackson, tell him about Dr. Pritchard. Jackson leaned forward. After your meeting with Derek and his lawyer, I did some digging on Dr. Samuel Pritchard, the psychiatrist who supposedly evaluated you. He exists. Has a practice about 40 miles from here. I called his office yesterday, pretending to be a family member seeking an evaluation for my father. His receptionist told me, Dr. Pritchard doesn't do competency evaluations. He specializes in adolescent anxiety disorders. When I mentioned your name, she had no record of you ever being a patient, so the evaluation is completely fake, I said. Correct, Sarah said. Which means Derek and his attorney, Gordon Hastings, attempted to defraud you using falsified medical documents. That's another crime. It also completely undermines any attempt to have you declared incompetent. We can have you evaluated by a real psychiatrist, someone reputable, who will document that you're cognitively sound. She pulled out a business card. Dr. Helen Martinez. She's a forensic psychiatrist who works with elder abuse cases. I've already contacted her, and she's available to evaluate you tomorrow if you're willing. I'm willing, I said. Good. Once we have her evaluation, Derek's entire strategy collapses. He can't claim you're incompetent when a qualified doctor says otherwise, and the fake evaluation becomes evidence of his criminal intent. What about my brother and nephew? I asked. Derek told them I'm losing my mind. Hess turned them against me. Sarah's expression softened. That's painful, I know. But once the truth comes out, once they see the evidence, they'll understand. Derek manipulated them because that's what abusers do. They isolate their victims and control the narrative. Well, make sure Raymond and Thomas know the truth. Jackson pulled up something on his laptop. There's one more thing you should know. Something I discovered after Margaret died. Something even she didn't know about. He turned the screen toward me. It showed hospital security footage, time-stamped 2 days before Margaret's death. The image showed a hospital corridor, and I recognized it immediately. That was the floor where Margaret had been in her final days, the cardiac unit. In the video, Derek walked down the corridor and entered Margaret's room. The timestamp showed he was there for 43 minutes. When he left, his face was flushed and angry. I obtained this from the hospital after Margaret passed, Jackson said. I wanted to document Derek's movements in case he tried to claim she had given him permission for any of his actions. But I found something I wasn't expecting. He played audio from a second file. It was muffled, clearly recorded on a phone, but I recognized Margaret's voice immediately, weak but unmistakable. Derek, I won't do it. I won't convince your father to sign anything over to you. Derek's voice, harsh and angry. Why are you being so difficult? You're dying anyway. What does it matter what happens after you're gone? It matters because I love him. It matters because what you're doing is wrong. Wrong? I've been taking care of him, taking care of both of you. You've been stealing from him. I know about the checks, Derek. I know about all of it. A pause, then Derek's voice, lower and more menacing. You can't prove anything. Can't I? You underestimate me, Derek. You always have. Mom, listen to me, Derek said. And I noticed he never called Margaret Mom to her face when I was around. If you tell Dad any of this, it'll make sure he never believes you. It'll tell him you're confused, that the medications are affecting your judgment. Who do you think he'll believe? His dying wife or his son? He'll believe the truth, Margaret said, her voice shaking. And the truth is that you're not the man he thinks you are. You're selfish, cruel, and you're killing him slowly. Every dollar you steal, every lie you tell, you're destroying your father. Has already destroyed. Derek snapped. Has a pathetic old man living in the past. The house, the money, all of it should be mine. You've earned it. You've earned nothing. You've stolen everything. Whatever. You'll be dead in a few days anyway. And when you are, he'll have Dad declared incompetent before the month is out. There's nothing you can do about it. The audio cut off. I sat in silence, my heart pounding. Rage and grief warring inside me. Margaret had confronted Derek from her hospital bed, knowing she was dying, still trying to protect me. 3 hours after this conversation, Jackson said quietly, Margaret had the massive heart attack that killed her. The nurse on duty reported that she heard raised voices from Margaret's room but didn't intervene because family disagreements were common. By the time she went to check on Margaret later, she was in cardiac arrest. Sarah put her hand on mine. Mr. Creighton, I want to be clear. We can't prove that Derek's confrontation directly caused Margaret's heart attack. Medically, causation is difficult to establish. But ethically, morally, his cruelty and stress in her final days certainly contributed to her decline. I couldn't speak. The image of Margaret, weak and dying, still fighting for me, while Derek threatened her, was almost too much to bear. The point, Sarah said, is that we have evidence of Derek's complete lack of remorse, his willingness to manipulate and threaten even a dying woman. This recording, combined with everything else, paints a picture of a man who is dangerous and predatory. What do we do now? I asked, my voice hoarse. Now, we set a trap, Sarah said. Derek gave you 48 hours. We have about 36 hours left. We're going to let him think he's won. You're going to call him and tell him you'll sign the power of attorney papers. Well, arrange a meeting at your house tomorrow evening. But when Derek arrives, he won't find a confused old man ready to surrender. He'll find me, Jackson, and 2 police detectives with enough evidence to arrest him. You want to arrest him at my house. I want him to face the consequences in the place where he committed his crimes, Sarah said. In the home where Margaret protected you, where she spent her final months fighting for you. Derek thought he could destroy your life there. Instead, that's where his own life will fall apart. Jackson added, I've already been in contact with Detective Luis Ramirez at the police department. He handles financial crimes and elder abuse cases. Once he sees our evidence, he'll be ready to make the arrest. There's one more thing, Sarah said. I think we should contact your brother Raymond and your nephew Thomas. Invite them to be there tomorrow. They deserve to see the truth firsthand. They think I'm losing my mind, I said. Then, well, show them you're not. Well, show them exactly who Derek is. I thought about it. About Raymond and Thomas seeing Derek arrested. Seeing all the evidence of what had done. Part of me wanted to spare them that pain. But another part knew Sarah was right. They needed to see the truth. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Sarah smiled, and this time it was warm. Good. Now let's go over every detail. When Derek walks into your house tomorrow, we need to be ready for every possible reaction. Hes going to fight, Hes going to lie, and Hes going to try to manipulate everyone in that room. But we have something he doesn't expect. What's that? I asked. The truth, Sarah said, and Margaret's love, still protecting you. We spent the next 2 hours planning every detail of the confrontation, where everyone would be positioned, how we would present the evidence, what questions the detectives would ask, how to handle Derek's lawyer if he showed up. By the time I left Sarah's office, I felt something I hadn't felt since Margaret's death. I felt powerful. Not because I wanted revenge, though that was certainly part of it, but because I was finally fighting back. I was honoring Margaret's gift by refusing to be a victim. I walked to my car, pulled out my phone, and called Derek. He answered on the second ring. Dad, have you made your decision? Yes, I said, keeping my voice tired and defeated. He'll sign the papers. You win, Derek. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. You're making the right choice. This is for the best. Come to the house tomorrow at 6. Bring the documents. He'll be there. And Dad, this is better for everyone. You'll see. I hung up without responding. Tomorrow at 6, Derek would walk into the house expecting to take control of my life. Instead, he'd find justice waiting for him. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I spent the morning straightening the house, a useless activity since it was already clean, but I needed something to do with my hands. Sarah had arranged for the meeting to take place in the living room, the same room where Derek and Gordon Hastings had threatened me just 2 days ago. By 3 in the afternoon, people started arriving. Sarah came first, carrying 2 briefcases full of documents and evidence. Jackson arrived 20 minutes later with his laptop and portable printer. At 4, Detective Luis Ramirez showed up with his partner, Detective Andrea Flynn. They were both in plain clothes, professional and calm. Luis was a man in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a quiet intensity. Andrea was younger, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and the alert posture of someone who didn't miss details. "Mr. Creighton," Luis said, shaking my hand. "I've reviewed the evidence Miss Blackwell and Mr. Cole provided. I want you to know that what your son did to you is serious, and we take elder abuse very seriously in this department." "Thank you," I said. At 4:30, I called my brother Raymond. "Creighton," he said, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "How are you doing? Have you thought about what Derek said? About seeing someone? Raymond, I need you to come to my house. Tonight, at 6, and bring Thomas, if he can make it." "Why? What's going on?" "Please, just trust me. Come to the house. You'll understand everything." There was a long pause. "Okay, brother. Well, be there." At 5:45, Raymond and Thomas arrived. I met them at the door. Raymond looked worried, studying my face like he was searching for signs of dementia. Thomas, my nephew, looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be involved in family drama. "What's this about?" Raymond asked. "Come inside. There are some people I want you to meet." I led them into the living room, where Sarah, Jackson, and the 2 detectives were waiting. Raymond's eyes widened. "Creighton, what's going on? Why are there police here?" "Sit down," I said gently. "Please, you'll understand everything in a few minutes." Before Raymond could respond, we heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Derek's truck pull up. He was alone. No Gordon Hastings this time. He climbed out carrying a leather folder that probably held the power of attorney documents. I opened the door before he could knock. Derek's confident expression faltered slightly when he saw my face. "Dad, you look better. More clear-headed. Come in, Derek." He stepped inside, and I led him toward the living room. "I have some people here. Witnesses to make sure everything is done properly." "Witnesses?" Derek sounded uncertain now. "Dad, what?" He stopped in the doorway of the living room, seeing Raymond and Thomas, seeing Sarah and Jackson, seeing the 2 detectives. His face went pale. "What is this?" His voice was tight. "This is the truth, Derek," I said, moving to stand beside Sarah. "Please, sit down." "I'm not sitting down." "What the hell is going on?" Detective Ramirez stood. "Mr. Derek Creighton. I'm Detective Luis Ramirez. This is my partner, Detective Andrea Flynn. We'd like to ask you some questions about your financial relationship with your father." Derek's eyes darted around the room, landing on Raymond. "Uncle Raymond, Thomas, I told you." Hess confused. "This is exactly what I was talking about." Hess not thinking clearly. "Sit down, Derek," Raymond said quietly. "Let's hear what they have to say." Derek remained standing, his hands clenched on the leather folder. "This is ridiculous. Dad, tell them. Tell them you asked me to help with your finances." Sarah spoke, her voice calm and professional. "Mr. Creighton. Derek Creighton, I mean. My name is Sarah Blackwell. I'm an attorney specializing in elder abuse. Over the past 6 months, I've been working with Creighton's late wife Margaret on a case involving systematic financial fraud and exploitation. Margaret," Derek's voice cracked slightly. "She's dead. Whatever she told you is extensively documented." Sarah interrupted. She opened her briefcase and began laying papers on the coffee table. Bank statements showing $350,000 in unauthorized transactions over 5 years. Forensic analysis of forged signatures. Videos of you, Derek, forging checks in this house. Jackson opened his laptop and turned it toward the room. The video played, showing Derek in my study, carefully forging my signature. Raymond gasped. Thomas leaned forward, staring at the screen. "That's not. You can't just," Derek stammered. Jackson played another video, then another. Derek going through my desk. Derek photographing financial documents. Derek on the phone, bragging about bleeding the old man dry. Raymond stood up, his face red. "Derek, what the hell have you done?" "Uncle Raymond, listen. This isn't what it looks like. Mom, I mean Margaret. She was confused. She was sick. She didn't understand. She understood perfectly. I said, my voice steady. She spent 6 months documenting everything you did. Every check you forged. Every dollar you stole. Every lie you told. Sarah pulled out more documents. A fraudulent second mortgage on this house for $150,000. Credit card fraud totaling $55,000. 18 separate counts of forgery. And that's just the financial crimes. She nodded to Jackson, who played the audio recording from the hospital. Margaret's weak voice filled the room, confronting Derek. Derek's cruel responses, his threats, his complete lack of remorse. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Raymond had tears running down his face. Thomas looked sick. Derek's mask had completely crumbled. His face was red, twisted with rage and panic. You have no right! This is a violation of privacy. Those recordings are illegal. They're perfectly legal, Sarah said. The video recordings were made in your father's home, with his wife's consent. The audio from the hospital was recorded by Margaret on her own phone. Both are admissible as evidence. Detective Ramirez stepped forward. Mr. Derek Creighton, based on the evidence presented, I have a warrant for your arrest. He pulled out a document. You're being charged with 18 counts of forgery, multiple counts of identity theft, credit card fraud, mortgage fraud, and elder financial abuse. No, Derek said, backing toward the door. No, you can't do this. I'm his son. That makes it worse, Detective Flynn said, moving to block his exit. Elder abuse by a family member carries enhanced penalties. Derek turned to me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted hatred in his eyes. You're really going to do this? You're going to send your own son to prison. You did this to yourself, I said. You stole from me for years. You tried to destroy me. You were cruel to Margaret in her final days. You contributed to her death. I didn't kill her. You broke her heart, I said. You put stress on a woman with a failing heart, and 3 hours after you threatened her, she died. Maybe you didn't hold a weapon, but your cruelty helped kill her. You can't prove that, Derek spat. Maybe not in court, Sarah said, but we can prove everything else. And when a jury sees the kind of man you are, when they hear you threatening a dying woman, they're going to have no sympathy for you. Raymond crossed the room and stood in front of Derek. How could you? Creighton raised you. He gave you everything after your mother left, and you repaid him like this. I deserved it, Derek said, his voice rising. I deserved that money. Do you know what it was like growing up with him? Always so perfect, always so righteous, always telling me to be better, work harder. Nothing was ever good enough. So you decided to steal from him, Thomas said, speaking for the first time. That's your justification, Derek laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. You don't understand. None of you do. That house, that money. It should have been mine anyway. I was just taking what I was owed. You were owed nothing, I said quietly. I gave you love, support, opportunity. You chose to throw it away. You chose to become a thief and a liar. Detective Flynn pulled out handcuffs. Mr. Creighton, you need to turn around and place your hands behind your back. Wait, Derek said, panic clear in his voice now. Wait, let's talk about this. Dad, we can work this out. I'll pay back the money. I'll make it right. Just don't do this. You can't pay it back, Jackson said. We've examined your finances. You're $300,000 in debt, most of it to a casino and some very unpleasant people. The money you stole is gone. Derek's eyes widened as he realized what Jackson had just revealed. You looked into my finances? You had no right. Your father had every right, Sarah said. And what we found proves that you're not just a thief. You have a serious gambling addiction. You've been stealing from your father to feed that addiction. The boat you bought? You had to sell it 3 months ago to pay gambling debts. Your house? In foreclosure. Your marriage? Ended when Natalie discovered what you'd been doing. At the mention of Natalie's name, Derek's face went white. Natalie told you. What did she tell you? Everything, I said. I called her 2 days ago. She told me about the money you stole from her during the marriage, about your gambling, about the times you frightened her when you lost badly and came home angry. She's been cooperating with the investigation. It was Derek's turn to look betrayed. She had no right. She had every right, Sarah said. You abused her too, Derek. Financially and emotionally. She's filing charges as well. Detective Flynn stepped forward with the handcuffs again. Enough talking. Turn around. Derek looked around the room one last time, searching for someone who might help him. Finding no one. Raymond was crying. Thomas looked disgusted. I stood with my arms crossed, feeling no pity. This is all your fault, Derek said to me. His voice, venomous. You did this. You destroyed my life. No, I said. You destroyed your own life. You made every choice that led you here. Detective Flynn grabbed Derek's arm and spun him around, snapping the handcuffs on his wrists. As she read him his rights, Derek started yelling, cursing me, cursing Margaret, cursing everyone in the room. They led him toward the door. Just before they reached it, he turned back one last time. I hope you're happy, he said. I hope this was worth it. Dying alone with no one. He won't be alone, Raymond said, standing up. He has me. He has Thomas. He has family who actually care about him, not about his money. Derek laughed bitterly as the detectives led him out. We heard him still yelling as they put him in the police car. Heard his voice fade as they drove away. In the silence that followed, Raymond came to me and pulled me into a hug. Brother, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have known Derek was lying. Has very good at lying. I said, has been doing it for years. Thomas hugged me too. Uncle Creighton, I'm sorry I doubted you. Anything you need, anything at all, you just call me. Sarah started packing up her briefcase. Mr. Creighton, Derek will be arraigned tomorrow morning. Given the severity of the charges and the amount of money involved, bail will be high. I doubt he'll be able to make it. What happens next? I asked. The district attorney will review the evidence. Given how strong our case is, Derek will likely be offered a plea deal. If he takes it, he could face 4 to 6 years in prison. If he goes to trial and loses, he could get 8 to 12. And the money. Well, pursue restitution through the criminal case, and file a civil lawsuit to recover what we can. It won't be everything, but well, get back whatever we can find. The fraudulent mortgage will be voided. Your credit cards will be cleared of the fraudulent charges. You'll be okay financially. Jackson closed his laptop. Mr. Creighton, I want you to know that your wife would be very proud of you. She worked hard to give you the tools to fight back. You honored her memory by using them. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The emotional weight of everything that had just happened was crushing. Derek was arrested. My family knew the truth. Justice was being served. But Margaret was still gone. Sarah seemed to read my thoughts. The hardest part is ahead. The grief, the processing, the rebuilding. But you don't have to do it alone. Raymond put his hand on my shoulder. You're staying with us for a few days. Thomas and I already discussed it. You shouldn't be alone right now. I need to be here, I said. In this house, with Margaret's things. Then I'm staying here, Raymond said firmly. Thomas, go home to your family. I'm staying with my brother. Thomas nodded and left, but not before hugging me one more time. Sarah and Jackson packed up their things and departed, promising to call tomorrow with updates. Finally, it was just Raymond and me, sitting in the living room where it had all happened. The same room where Derek had threatened me. The same room where he had been arrested. Tell me about Margaret, Raymond said. Tell me how she figured it all out. So I did. I told him about finding the letter, about Margaret's investigation, about the 6 months she spent protecting me while her heart failed, about her love, still reaching out from beyond death to save me. Raymond cried as I talked, grieving for the sister-in-law he had loved, marveling at her strength and foresight. She was extraordinary, he said finally. And Derek didn't deserve either of you. No, I agreed. He didn't. We sat in silence for a while. Two brothers who had been estranged by lies now brought back together by truth. I missed you, Raymond said. We should have stayed closer. Well, do better now, I said, and I meant it. Derek had tried to isolate me, to turn my family against me, to leave me helpless. Instead, his crimes had brought me back to Raymond, had revealed who truly cared about me. Margaret had saved me in so many ways, not just from Derek, but from the loneliness that might have consumed me after her death. Her love was still here, still protecting me, still guiding me forward. 6 months later, I stood in my kitchen on a Sunday morning, making coffee and watching the sunrise through the window. The house felt different now, not empty, despite Margaret's absence, but alive in a way it hadn't been during those dark days after her death. Everything had changed. And yet everything had also settled into a new kind of normal. Derek had taken a plea deal. Facing overwhelming evidence, his lawyer had advised him that going to trial would likely result in a much harsher sentence. He pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 3 if he showed good behavior and completed financial responsibility courses. I hadn't attended the sentencing. Sarah represented me, and she said Derek never apologized, never showed remorse. He stood in front of the judge and took his punishment with the same sullen entitlement had shown throughout his life. The judge, a woman in her 60s who had clearly seen too many cases like this, told Derek that betraying a parent's trust was one of the most despicable crimes she'd encountered in her career. The civil case had recovered most of the money. Between the restitution ordered by the criminal court and the settlement from the bank that had approved the fraudulent mortgage, I had gotten back $240,000. Not everything, but enough to rebuild my retirement security. The house was secure. The fake mortgage had been voided, and the bank had apologized profusely for their failure to properly verify the documents. They'd offered a settlement to avoid a lawsuit, and I'd accepted it. My credit was restored. The credit card companies had removed all the fraudulent charges once ID provided the police reports and court documents. My credit score had actually improved because I was now paying careful attention to my finances. But the financial recovery, while important, wasn't the most significant change in my life. The doorbell rang, and I heard the sound I'd been waiting for: children's laughter and the scramble of feet on my front porch. I opened the door to find Emma and Jake, my grandchildren, bouncing with excitement. Grandpa. Emma, now 10 years old, threw her arms around my waist. Jake, 7, followed close behind. Pancakes? Jake asked hopefully. Absolutely. Go wash your hands. They ran toward the bathroom, while Natalie, my former daughter-in-law, came up the walk carrying a canvas bag. She looked healthier than she had 6 months ago, the strain and fear gone from her face. Morning, Creighton, she said, kissing my cheek. I brought fresh strawberries from the farmer's market. Perfect. Coffee's ready. We moved to the kitchen, and I started mixing pancake batter, while Emma and Jake told me about their week at school. Natalie set the table, moving around my kitchen with easy familiarity. This had become our Sunday tradition: breakfast at Grandpa's house. It was one of the greatest gifts to emerge from the darkness of Derek's betrayal. During the investigation, I'd learned that Derek had kept me away from my grandchildren through lies. Had told Natalie I wasn't interested in seeing them, that I was too busy, too old, too set in my ways. Had told me that Natalie didn't want me involved, that she thought I was a bad influence. All lies. Derek had isolated me from my grandchildren because he was afraid. Afraid I might tell Natalie about his financial problems. Afraid the children might accidentally mention something they'd seen or heard. Afraid that, if I had a relationship with them, I'd discover the truth about his failing marriage and gambling addiction. Now, 6 months later, Natalie and I talked almost every day. She'd become like the daughter I'd never had. Margaret would have loved this. Would have loved seeing me surrounded by family, helping Natalie rebuild her life, being a grandfather to Emma and Jake. After breakfast, Raymond and Thomas arrived. We'd made plans to go to the cemetery together, to visit Margaret's grave. It was something I did every Sunday after breakfast, and my brother had started joining me most weeks. Raymond and I had grown close again, closer than we'd been in years. The distance that had developed between us over the years had evaporated. We talked on the phone 3 or 4 times a week now. Head retired last month, and he and his wife were planning to move closer to town, to be near family. At the cemetery, I knelt by Margaret's headstone. It was simple granite, with her name, dates, and the inscription, "I'd chosen. Beloved wife, protector, and guardian angel." "Hi, sweetheart," I said quietly, placing fresh flowers in the vase. "I brought everyone today. The kids are getting so big." Emma lost another tooth, and Jake made the soccer team. I told her about the week, about the work at the foundation, about Raymond's retirement plans, about everything and nothing. The others gave me space, standing back respectfully while I talked to my wife. The Margaret Harris Foundation had become my purpose, my way of channeling grief into something meaningful. We'd opened our doors 3 months ago, funded by some of the recovered money and donations from community members who'd heard Margaret's story. We provided legal assistance, financial counseling, and support services to victims of elder abuse. Sarah served on the board, donating her time to help people who couldn't afford attorneys. Jackson volunteered his investigative services. WED already helped 37 people in 3 months, and the local news had done a story about our work that had brought in more donations and more people needing help. I worked at the foundation 3 days a week, meeting with victims, connecting them with resources, sometimes just sitting and listening to their stories. It was hard work, emotionally draining, but it gave me purpose. It helped me feel like Margaret's sacrifice, her final months spent building a case against Derek, had meaning beyond just saving me. "I'm living, Margaret," I said to her gravestone. "Like you told me to. I'm not just surviving or waiting. I'm actually living." Emma came and stood beside me, slipping her small hand into mine. "Grandpa, do you think Grandma Margaret can hear you?" "I think so, sweet pea. I think she's always listening." "Then I want to say something." Emma knelt down by the headstone. "Thank you, Grandma Margaret, for protecting my grandpa. I never got to meet you, but I think you must have been really brave and really smart. I love you." My throat tightened with emotion. I squeezed Emma's hand and helped her stand up. We drove back to the house together, all of us, and spent the afternoon in the backyard. Raymond and Thomas set up the grill for lunch. Natalie helped me make potato salad. The children played on the swing set Eid installed last month, their laughter filling the air. This was my life now. Not the life I'd planned. Not the one I'd imagined when Margaret was alive. But a good life nonetheless. A life filled with people who loved me. Not for what they could take, but for who I was. In the evening, after everyone had left, I sat in my study, looking at the photographs on my desk. Margaret, on our wedding day, her smile radiant. Margaret and me on vacation in Maine, standing on a rocky beach. Margaret in this very room, holding a book, caught in a moment of concentration. I thought about everything I'd learned in these 6 months. About trust and betrayal. About family and isolation. About love and manipulation. For years, I'd confused love with enabling. I'd given Derek everything he asked for, made excuses for his failures, bailed him out of problems, never held him accountable. I'd thought that was what good fathers did. That unconditional love meant accepting everything without question. Margaret had understood what I hadn't. Real love sometimes means setting boundaries. Real love means expecting integrity and character. Real love means letting people face the consequences of their choices because that's the only way they can grow. I'd failed Derek by never teaching him those lessons. By giving him everything. I'd taught him that he deserved everything without earning it. By never holding him accountable. I'd taught him that actions didn't have consequences. But I wouldn't make that mistake with Emma and Jake. They would know the difference between love and manipulation. They would understand that trust is earned. That family means loyalty and respect, not entitlement and exploitation. It also learned that family isn't just about blood. Natalie had been more of a daughter to me in 6 months than Derek had been a son in 40 years. Raymond and Thomas, who I'd drifted away from, had proven themselves more reliable and caring than the person I'd raised from childhood. The deepest lesson, though, was about Margaret's love. Even knowing she was dying, she had spent her final months protecting me. She could have given up, could have decided it wasn't her problem, could have left me to discover Derek's betrayal on my own. Instead, she fought for me with every ounce of strength she had left. That was real love. Love that protects. Love that prepares. Love that reaches beyond death itself to save the person it cherishes. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the letter Margaret had left with Jackson. The one I'd read dozens of times now. Her words were familiar, comforting. A conversation I could still have with her even though she was gone. Live fully. Shed written. Find joy again. Find peace. I was trying, Margaret. Every day, I was trying. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. The foundation had just received a large anonymous donation, enough to expand our services and hire a full-time counselor. Good news to end a good day. I texted her back with thanks, then stood and walked to the bedroom. On the nightstand was a photograph of Margaret and me from our 20th anniversary, both of us laughing at something, caught in a moment of pure happiness. "Thank you," I whispered to the photograph. "For everything. For loving me. For protecting me. For teaching me what really matters. I'm going to keep living fully, the way you wanted. I'm going to help people the way you helped me. And I'm going to make sure Emma and Jake know about you. About your courage and your love." I changed for bed, exhausted but content. Tomorrow I'd be at the foundation. Meeting with a woman whose son had stolen her social security checks. Tuesday, I had lunch planned with Raymond. Wednesday was Emma's school play. Thursday was the foundation board meeting. My life was full. Not in the way it had been when Margaret was alive, but full nonetheless. Full of purpose, full of family, full of small moments of grace and connection. Derek would be in prison for at least 3 more years. I didn't visit him. Id sent one letter through his attorney, explaining that I forgave him, but that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. He needed to face his consequences, learn from his mistakes, and hopefully become a better man. If he did that work, if he genuinely changed, maybe someday we could have a relationship again. But I wasn't holding my breath. Some people never learn. Some people never take responsibility. And Id learned that I couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. I could only save myself, protect myself, and live the life Margaret had fought so hard to preserve for me. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt her presence, not the aching absence that had consumed me in those first weeks, but something warmer and more comforting. Her love was still here, woven into the fabric of this house, embedded in the foundation we'd created, present in every moment I spent with the family who truly cared about me. Derek had tried to destroy me. Instead, Head revealed who I could trust and who I couldn't. Head brought me back to Raymond, introduced me to my grandchildren, and taught me the difference between real love and manipulation. Margaret had saved me one final time, and now I was living the life Shed wanted for me. A life of purpose, connection, and peace. The final lesson was this: trust is earned, not owed. Love means holding people accountable, not enabling their worst behavior. Sometimes the family we choose is more loyal than the family we're born into. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. And even in death, real love keeps protecting those it cherishes. Id spent 67 years learning these truths. Now, at 68, I was finally living them. And that, more than anything, was Margaret's greatest gift to me. If you've experienced something similar in your own family, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to hold a loved one accountable even though it broke your heart? How did you find the strength to do the right thing when it was also the hardest thing? Please share your stories and let's support each other through these difficult experiences. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories about resilience, justice, and finding peace after betrayal. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with family conflict or elder abuse. Your share could help them find the courage to protect themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, that love sometimes means setting boundaries, and that even in our darkest moments, we can find the strength to fight back and reclaim our lives. Take care of yourselves. Protect what matters. And remember that you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter who's on the other side of that expectation.